Elsie name along with mine.
Okay.
Mother ran out. I was the 10th. I'm the tithing child, you see.
Oh.
And she didn't. She ran out of giving the girls 2 names. So Bernice and Ruth and I just had our one name.
What was your name again?
Elsi Steed Smith.
And who was your parents?
And my mother was Julia Maria Wilcox, and she married Walter William Steed. And his name, my father's name, was Walter William Steed from Farmington. I was born in Farmington, but they built the big home out at Syracuse in, I think, 1901. I was born in 1899. I kept it all in the 9s. And of course, we lived out at Syracuse in that home that's still there. I think Sharon is living in the home, isn't she?
And his second wife lived in the home down in the field?
Father's second wife,
Yes.
she lived, and Alice lived in that house. That used to be the main road when they built that house down there.
Along the bluff?
Uh-huh.
That was the main road, huh?
That was the main road at the time they built that house. That's what I've been told. I haven't checked in on it to see if it was right.
Ask questions.
Well, if you ask questions, I'll try and answer what I can.
Well, you say 1901, the home was finished.
That's when I understand we moved to Syracuse.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about your father, okay? He was a very good farmer. Tell us what you remember about him farming and things like that.
Well, Father always seemed to be good-natured. He didn't seem to get after, he didn't get after me anyway. And he was a good provider, and he was a cheerful person to be around, I always thought.
He used to own some of the property up where Hill Field is now. I think he used to graze sheep up on that Sand Ridge or whatever it's called up there.
Well, Syracuse was called the Sand Ridge.
Oh, was it?
When we moved out there.
Oh,
They said we
Anything above the bluff was called the
Sand Ridge. Oh.
What kind of crops did he grow? Farm crops?
And it's that so long ago, potatoes and peas, corn. He grew most anything, I think, that they grew on the farm.
Did he have quite a few cattle, cows?
He had cattle and sheep, because we used to have to feed the little lambs with a bottle if the mother wouldn't feed them. And I fed many a little lamb with a bottle.
Hello.
And then I think Father
Yeah,
had
yeah, just a minute.
his sheep up in Wyoming, because he was gone quite a bit of the time. That's what I've been told.
Well, see, he had a lot of pasture land
Yeah, then we had
down
that
below.
down below the house, and then he had that down south and west, wasn't it?
The white elephant.
Yeah, right. See, you folks know more about things that are taking place recently than I do. I haven't been out to Syracuse for years.
I have a description of your father here. Do you remember him like this? I don't know which one of your sisters. It says Alice wrote this.
That was Alice Larson. That's the second oldest of the family.
She describes her father was to her almost perfection. His tall, robust physique, dark brown hair and mustache, snappy yet kindly eyes, and ever masculine features combined to make him a handsome man in my estimation. I can almost sense the pride I felt as my sister Laura and I walked beside him to Sunday school with our small hands in his large, firm ones. Is that the way you remember your father?
I remember Father had his mustache cut off, and I think it was my sister Irita said, "Now don't go any place where anybody can see you until I go to Ogden and buy you a false mustache." And a few hours later she says, "Father, don't ever grow another mustache. You look so much better without." And he never did.
Do you remember anything about playing in the barn? The big barn, the beautiful
Yeah,
barn
we
they
used to
had?
go down and jump around on the hay.
It was one of the biggest, best barns built in Davis County.
In that time.
Like 17,000 shingles on that barn.
Of course, I was young when they built the house and those things out there. I don't remember a lot of those things. Now, how much my sister Ruth will remember, I don't know.
We'll try to check with her.
But if you get in touch with her when she gets back from Hong Kong, see, their oldest son is there on a mission, he and his wife. The church sent them there for 2 or 3 years, and Ruth and Warren went to visit them while they're there so they could see that part of the country.
Do you remember the old cannery down there?
I remember the train going down the track, down to the cannery, down at the other street. I remember that. We girls used to take pins down and put on the railroad track, hoping they'd stay and be mashed together, but half the time they were shucked off before they got mashed. Yes, I remember that. Mother used to take me down to Cook's to pick currants and gooseberries, and I thought she took me because I was such good health. But I found out later that Rita and Bernice couldn't go. They had to stay and do things at home, and Ruth and Rulon were too small, and she took me for company. So, I wasn't the health that I thought I was.
You remember the old Walker store that was down there?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that, your memories.
Well, I don't remember too much about it. My sister Laura, I think, clerked down there for a while. But I didn't get to go to the store very often. I was too little. I guess I wanted too many things when I went. I don't know, but I don't remember going to the store either. It was Walker's up here and Walker down there, wasn't it? Those
Yes.
stores belonged to the Walkers.
They down at the lower store, they started a few years ahead of the one up on the corner.
Oh, did they? Well, I didn't know that.
So where did you start school? Did you?
Where did I start school?
Yes, which building was
The
being
one
used
that-
for school?
The one that's still there, as far as I know.
That's the first school?
The older girls went to another, but by the time I was old enough to go, Father bought a house in Salt Lake, so the older ones could go to high school because we didn't have a high school. And I went to the Lowell School in the 4th grade, and some of the youngsters said, "Where did you move from?" And I said, "Syracuse." "Oh, Syracuse, New York." I said, "This little country dummy didn't even know there was a Syracuse, New York. All I knew was Syracuse, Davis County."
When you was going to Syracuse school, was there, how many rooms was there in it? Do you remember, and who your teacher was?
Well, my first teacher was Tree Sunderland. It seems like it was about like it was when I quit, the same size. I don't know. But we used to, if the weather and the mud wasn't too bad, we'd walk through the field and then see that was just a mile. If we had to go the other way around, it was 1.5 miles or more. So we went through the field. And my brother Glenn, Louise knows Glenn. I don't know if you folks knew my brother Glenn, but he'd walk with us until we'd get across Wilcox's fence, and then he'd run to the house and get in the pantry and pull the bin down so that we couldn't open the door until he got what he wanted to eat. Then when he'd get what he wanted, then he'd put the bin back up and open the door and say, "Okay, you can have the pantry now."
Did you go to Salt Lake to school with live in the home here?
Just that 1 year.
Just 1 year?
I went to the 4th grade down to the Lowell School. And then I finished out to Syracuse. I graduated from the 8th grade. Then I started with rheumatic fever, and I only got 1 year of high school.
Where'd you go to the high school in Syracuse?
When they had that high school up by Peter Christensen's, I can remember it was just a frame building, but I don't remember who the teacher was.
There's quite a few orchard trees down, maybe a little west of you there, but a lot of fruit trees down there, wasn't there?
Well, there weren't so many below us as there was more on the level with us.
On the bluff, right on the bluff,
Yeah.
was that the orchard?
Under the bluff, I don't know. Of course, we didn't, as a kid, I didn't get down there. I just went where the family took me, like I go where Julia takes me now.
Did you have running water in your home or a
We didn't
well?
at first. We had a flowing well out this way from the house and one over here. But one of them had a little sand in it. But when then they got one that they put in the house. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old when they piped the water in the house. And we had a bathtub. You could bathe in the house and not have a tin tub to do it in. That's when we thought we'd graduated. I remember the old tin tub we used to have, and I used to wonder how Father and the boys could ever bathe in one of those tin tubs.
I'd hate to get in one now.
Now there was the 2 families there close together. Did you have dinners together and play together? And
We played together, but we didn't eat back and forth. But I remember the older girls went to help Aunt Alice. Of course, I was a week younger than Milton. He was the oldest, so I didn't help very much down to Aunt Alice's, but the older girls helped quite a bit.
I understand that your father was very devout, and when the Sabbath day came around, that they held real close to keeping the Sabbath. Do you remember any of that?
We went to church in the white top. It was a 3-seated white top, and of course our family would pretty well fill it up, but if there was any walking, Father always picked up all of the other youngsters that were walking to church. So we usually had a pretty good sized church by the time we got there. People that we had in the old white top. It was a 3-seater. Most people just had 2, but Father needed a 3 with all of us. Mother had 13 children. 12 of us were married in the temple. One little boy died when he was 2, almost 3, I think.
Did any of those children on your mother's go into polygamy?
None of Mother's children.
Just
Just Aunt Alice's.
the other family.
Noel and Woodruff. They had quite a write-up when Noel died. Do you remember that? And they say Woodruff's sick now, is he?
He was in the hospital,
Hospital.
what, a week ago when you
Yes,
called?
Sunday.
Joseph used to call me quite often, and he'd come to see me once in a while when he was alive, but of course he's been gone several years now.
Do you remember the railroad track that run along
That went down to the other
the
factory.
went down to the factory? But wasn't there one run along by your old home there?
Well, it was south of our place. It went from,
But there's one that went over to the West Point Road,
went where?
along the bluff over at the West Point Road. You remember that one?
I don't remember
Don't
that.
remember that one.
That probably came after.
The railroad that I remember was the one that came from Clearfield straight down and went down to that factory.
But they had a branch that went across your property over to the
Oh, did they?
West Point Road. It might have been later when
It
they
must have been after
they had
I
a beat
left.
dump over there.
I left there in 21,
21. That could have come. in
That's when I
25.
was
Might have been
married.
later.
and I went to Canada, and we lived there for about 6 years. Julia and Glenn were both born in Cardston, and then we moved to Salt Lake.
Is there any reason why you went
To Canada.
to Canada?
Well, that's where Rix's folks were. They were sent up there to help settle Mountain View and Hill Spring.
I
And
see.
he came down and went to LDS High School, and he met my brother Glenn. That's how we happened to meet him.
Oh. In other words, you married and went to Canada.
Yes.
Now, your father married a third wife in 1918, and that's when he moved to Salt Lake in southern Utah. Is that correct?
Yes, I think at one stage of the game they lived out in there in Utah, but they were in wasn't it Whitso
Whitso, yes.
where they lived?
And that's where Newell's was living, was it?
Well, of course, she and all 4 of her children are gone, I've been told.
Yes. We met Mary and down at Glenn's funeral, and then we went over and visited her later, and
Oh, did you?
since then she's died.
And now you folks know more about
Oh,
what the
really?
family's been doing than I do.
Oh,
No, no.
Louisa's folks kind of kept her in the dark. She didn't know what was really going on.
They didn't want you to know what was going on. But
It was in the paper or magazine.
I think Rhoda and Ora and Woodruff are the only ones that are still living in Aunt Alice's family, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I think so. You've got the list there, I think so. Yeah, Milton's gone, Joseph Mill's gone, Woodruff, and Hubert's gone. Yeah, there is. There's just Newell and
The
Rhoda
two
and Ora.
girls and Woodruff.
Newell died.
Yeah. When I get any things from Syracuse, I send them to Bernice Walker
Oh.
Taylor. So I keep her posted on what's happening in the town of Syracuse.
Yeah.
She was born and raised there. That's my oldest sister's daughter.
Was Joseph Steed a little younger or older than you?
He was younger. I'm a week younger than Milton, and then Joseph was a year or so younger.
Joseph you mentioned the 3-seated buggy. He was remembering taking that lower bluff and going down to the Tabernacle for conference. Do you remember that? I don't remember.
Conference, state conference.
General
General
conference.
General conference.
And they'd take their lunch and have it in the Tabernacle and take their hay for their horse and tie it up and having lunch there in the Tabernacle choir. And they'd have to leave maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning
That would be quite a drive.
and get
from
really
Syracuse
late
to
that night.
Salt
We've
Lake.
got that on a tape recording that's telling us that.
He might have just taken the boys, maybe. I don't know.
It would be hard to take 13.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
there would be 13 and 9 in the other family, so
I
you
think it's
get,
about 12 hours it took them for round trip, wasn't it?
22.
Something like that. It was quite a while.
but the 2 families.
I remember going to the tabernacle one time. I was a pretty good-sized youngster when they took me, but I don't remember how we went. Seems like we went on the dummy. That train, that Bamberger that they called the dummy.
I hadn't heard that.
Who called that?
Before it was electrified.
Yes. Right.
That was called the dummy. I did a research on that, so it wasn't electrified until 1913, so this was probably before then when you was...
Yes, it was before then.
What did you do in Canada? Was did
My
Rick's
husband's people were farmers.
farmers?
Uh-huh.
And that's what Rick's did while you were up
That's what he did when we lived in, but he came, when he lived here in Salt Lake, he was a tool and die maker out at Lockheed.
You mean in California?
Mhm.
Tell us about your life in California.
Well, we had a ward very much like this. They were very friendly. And I don't know.
Your husband, did he have his own business?
No.
Worked for Lockheed during the war, huh?
And we didn't live too far from Lockheed at the time. I haven't been to Burbank for years, so I don't know what it looks like down there.
Crowded.
Who was some of your best friends as you was growing up?
Girlfriends in Syracuse. Oh, there was Ruby and May Walker and
Ruby
Doris
Walker
Cook,
And May Walker, Ruby and May Walker. Okay.
and Verna Walker, and Doris Cook, and there was a Barton. What was her name? Clara Barton. I have a picture of those girls.
Do you?
Well, as we were in Utah, I think.
We were starting to get one. What'd you do for entertainment as children?
Well, at home, we had a, have you ever seen our house there in Syracuse? And there's that screen porch between that and what we call the wash house. And there was a swing there. We used to swing there a lot. And then we just played different games like any of the rest of them did.
What kind of games?
Oh, tag and hide and seek and those kind of things. Will and Emily Wilcox lived across the street, and I used to help babies take care of her little youngsters a lot. I was a pretty good little babysitter, I guess. Of course, Will was a cousin. His father and my mother were brother and sister.
Did you go up to the amusement hall and any shows or dances or entertainment up there?
Well, I think when I was a youngster, I don't know if a lot of the girls that lived up near there used to go there, but they'd tell of going over to the amusement hall, but I didn't get to go because the folks didn't go. And it was too far to walk alone. It's bad enough to walk to school. Isn't it awful? Things change so and you live different places.
You mentioned you had two wells. There's one article in the paper, Clayton, maybe you'll remember, where they went down 1,300 feet to get water on one of his wells.
Is that so?
I'm told about the difference of soils as they went down. I think it was at least 1,300 feet, which is tremendous depth at that time.
Well, I know we had the one well out. It seemed like it was this way from the house, and Father built a cement reservoir, what you call, and the water ran into that, and then it ran on down to the pasture.
You used
And
to
the
go
other
sw-
well was this other way.
You used to go swimming in the reservoir?
Oh, it wasn't that big.
It was just a
It
trough.
was just a,
No.
more or less a trough, I guess you'd say.
Well, there's one now, and I remember when I was young, I used to swim in it.
That was an old swimming pool that Joseph built.
Joseph.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's
Down in
different,
Brown.
Joseph.
I could never get
Joseph's
out of
of
that.
the other generation. I miss Joseph because he used to call me every once in a while.
What's she at?
But I haven't seen Rhoda nor I don't think since we went to a funeral out to Syracuse for somebody.
Dwayne, do we have pictures of him and his wives?
Yeah,
We do.
I think.
I think Arnold
think I
Miller was
remember
our
seeing
bishop
that
at one
myself.
stage out there.
Mhm.
But I get different people mixed up, so I don't know for sure.
We was wondering if we had pictures of your mother and Walter and his other wife. We think we do, but we sure need to get one if we
I
don't,
have
so
a
we can
picture
have
of
it
Mother
for a
and
book.
Father downstairs if you want to see that.
You know where it is?
Well, that one of Mother and Father are on my chest of drawers.
Maybe we can,
And where's
if we've
that
seen it,
family
recognize
group
it.
sheet?
I don't remember.
Bring that up and let
Grant
me look
probably
at
had
that.
one.
Yeah.
There's 12 of us on there with Mother and Father.
I don't think.
I
we do
remember the
family.
man taking the picture. He says, if you can get that little girl to stand still long enough for me to take a picture, that was my sister Ruth. So, of course, we've always razzed her about doing so we
She's never stood still since either.
And I guess they're in Hong Kong right now.
So they say. That's good. Well, you said who the girls were your age. Who are the boys that were your age? What are some of the boys?
Oh, there was the Fru boy and the Stoker boy and the Rampton,
Which Rampton?
Vern,
Vern. And then the Stoker, the Oswald.
with the Elmer.
Elmer.
Elmer Stoker and, oh, I didn't pay that much attention to the boys.
The boys, huh?
I'm not like the girls are now.
We had granddaughters chasing the boys all the time around here.
And then this is Mother's family.
Should we get that on in there? And
Yeah, if it's mine, I'd
I don't think
fine.
we have the family group. Hold it steady, huh?
Let her hold it there in front of her and then she can.
See, this is Ruth that wouldn't stand still.
Oh, uh-huh.
You just put that up in front of you,
Yeah,
he
and
can
then
get a picture
He'll
of
take a
it.
picture of it.
I think it'd be good to try to get a negative and get a picture of
Hold it up
that.
closer.
No, I'm okay.
He can get it there.
Maybe you could tell me who they are. No, you can't.
Well, I
Okay,
had
bring
to
up.
look at
Yeah.
them. Here's Laura and Alice, Louise and Walter, Verna, Marion, Irita, Bernice, Glenn, Elsie, Ruth, and Ruin.
Great, you know them.
There's 12 of us. Of course, we didn't ever get a picture of Thomas. We never had a picture of that little boy.
Hmm.
They didn't take pictures then like
No,
they
no,
do
they
now of the children.
No,
Yep, try that.
just
Just hold that right here.
This
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Get it up a little higher there.
You're off on a name and you want to.
I'm okay. There's the mother.
That's Mother and Father. That's Julia Maria and Walter William.
Okay.
I don't think we've got those pictures.
No, we could do either.
Do you have them?
I don't have it. Nell was gone, but Nell was always gone somewhere. So.
Always been on a mission. We try to get her here.
She never lied, so I
Joe got all the Iritas grant, genealogy, everything.
Well, we can
Well,
always
we just
come back
boxed
if
it up
we
and-
have to.
Now, since I live in Salt Lake, I'll do some of this work.
Grants to be easier.
My husband's great uncle.
We could do that in a day if we took them up there, and then if we wanted a negative, we'd take
Oh, was it?
that.
Yeah.
Or you can make all you
He
want.
was sent up to Idaho to help settle that part, and they named the town Rexburg, but they named the college after him,
After him,
Rex.
huh? Well, that's
Is
interesting.
that a video camera?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of interesting
You bet.
We've interviewed about 35 of the older residents and the video tapes.
Who is there in Syracuse that's older than I am now?
Walter Cook, 92.
Walter Cook. Was he the one that his mother lived on?
Amos Cook
Amos Cook?
was his father, and they lived up on a corner
They lived,
north
we
of you,
lived here, and then we went around the corner and they lived there.
right there.
Is that right?
And I think his father had 2 wives also,
Did he?
but only one lived in Syracuse.
Not that I know. Not that I knew of. at the
Well,
time.
Walter's mother lived in West Point, didn't she? That's the reason you wouldn't know Walter. Walter Cook.
Well,
Walt
if it was
Cook.
the Cooks that lived up, see, we lived here, and we came to the corner and here, and then I thought it was Amos Cook and his family that lived
Yeah,
there.
one of his
I
wives.
didn't know that he had 2 wives. I just knew the one family.
And then his brother was the first bishop of Syracuse.
Oh, was he?
Do you remember David Cook? Sam Cook's father?
Yes.
I knew David
Right.
Cook.
Well, there's about 4 David Cooks.
Where's your Good more David Cook now.
Yeah.
He was the first bishop in 1895, organized the
My
Syracuse
father was
Ward.
in here, baby.
Yeah, I guess.
And he was there till about
But he's even
1910,
born,
so
I guess, when I-
you'd probably remember Bishop Cook.
I do.
Yeah,
I remember where they lived.
he was the first
Well, this is
bishop.
that same one.
And he was a brother to
That's
Amos
an
Cook.
extra one,
Oh,
so
was
you
he?
can have
Oh,
that.
I
thank
didn't
you.
know
we
that.
could
I
copy that.
remember
We
that from
interviewed
another
Retta
book.
Payne.
Like I said,
You
Nell
don't
took
remember
that.
Retta Payne?
Retta Sessions.
These
Payne.
are one
Sessions.
for the small
Yes.
ones. and
She's
the
in,
those are some extras.
Burley.
Oh,
Burley.
Oh,
And
thank
she's
you.
92.
I like
So
that.
I've got
I remember the.
Oh, yeah, I thought she was older.
Thank
I thought,
you.
uh,
I thought she was more the age
Uh-huh.
of
97, her
Small.
next birthday, she's
Yeah,
95. or
96.
up
Yeah.
She's 97.
Her health is,
Yeah.
physically is not too good, but mentally just tremendous.
So look at that picture, I think it's quite small.
Let's see that one, Julia. I hadn't.
Gosh, I didn't remember
Now,
like that.
Hannah or
This
Edna,
must
You
have
know,
been
those
what you
numbers,
ought to do,
other
since
than
you're a
the
relative
names.
there, we
Think
can make
they're all
negatives
gone.
of these and make them up. What you ought to do is see if
She
you can
just
get
gave me
these
these.
on loan.
Yeah, she
Oh.
just gave
Those,
me.
I just gave her those, those are extras that I had negatives made of. Now these are some, this is one when, it doesn't have a year on. This was one of Grandpa Steed when he was quite young. And this was his, is that his mother?
I can't see it. Laura lives
Oh
in
no,
the-
this
Tom-
is
the wife of
Thomas
Thomas
Steed.
Steed's
This
wife.
is the wife of Thomas Steed.
Yeah.
That was Laura.
But in that
Reed.
stuff that I had, here's a picture of Aunt Alice with 3 of her boys. Who wants it?
How'd you get that on?
So that would be,
That must be Milton,
Joseph.
Joseph, and.
Yeah.
Well, the names are on the
Noel.
back of that one.
Milton, Joseph, and Newell.
Might be another one there somewhere.
This is a picture of the old house taken in 1960.
If it's different, we ought to get one.
Can't find it.
It's a
Yeah.
small.
No, you're going too low. Get it up.
It's later.
No,
I think he was saying,
Milton, Alice, Joseph, and Newell.
it won't focus. You gotta go back a way. There.
well, it's, Oh, okay.
It's too small.
You can take
really.
it.
Yeah, that's, if she's just gonna
The
give it to
kids,
you, you don't
yeah.
need to get it
Yeah,
on
I've
there.
got
You
it
go.
now.
Okay.
I didn't know they were taking pictures or I
Did
did
you?
my hair today.
You're
Elsie,
fine.
This shows the deal out back, doesn't it? Isn't that the, what do you call that out?
Their wash house?
Wash house? Oh,
Potato pit maybe.
No.
Then there was a cellar underneath, you know.
The porch.
Sun porch.
We
Sun
loved
porch
that
and that,
swing
yeah.
on there. Because we could swing when it
That's
was
exactly- I
snowing
think
and
that's
raining
his
and
fault.
still we
And
were
so
able
it's
to
only,
see
you know, I
dry.
didn't
Did your
know
father
that.
have peacocks?
So
Has that
I
been part of the
tried
Steed
to-
tradition?
Did he what?
Have peacocks?
no, no, that was
That
Uncle
came with
Joseph.
Joe.
That was Joseph that had all of those, I didn't.
Did you want to look at these others? This is a later picture of Grandpa and then one when he was real young. I don't know a date on that one. These are other family members, Thomas Steed.
Thomas was your grandfather.
Uh-huh.
He never lived in Syracuse, but he owned quite a bit of land. He had deeds to quite a bit of land, and then Walter bought some of this
And
land
then
from
Father
him.
had a brother, Thomas, that lived in Clearfield, Uncle Tom and Aunt Annie Steed. That was Father's brother.
Or maybe it was that,
Because at the time Thomas
You want
died,
to
Aunt
take
Annie
a
came
piece of
down
wood?
and helped Mother dress it, and Mother said, you can't come in, we're quarantined for typhoid. Because my one sister had
I
typhoid.
remember
we
Mama
were
things like that.
quarantined.
That was
She says, I'm
probably one of
coming
the
in.
family
And
members.
then it was that
that's
day.
maybe why they called Clearfield Steeds.
Yeah, they used to quarantine for everything, didn't they?
And they didn't have
Syracuse
large
Junction.
cars like
No,
they have now.
There's
Of
another
course,
brother.
if I know
Mother
see you
had
again
big
for another
homes.
40 years.
On the yard for days and days.
You're interested in this, no, I'll send it to you. if I
Post
don't get
office
it.
records get called
By
Steed
the hour.
Post
And
office.
I remember when he looked like that.
And the census of 1895 shows it's just as big as Syracuse.
No, that's.
Walter William
Walter.
Walter.
And that's when
When he
they
had his
started
own
a Sunday school in the eastern part.
Did Mother tell when he
Christmas
cut
corner.
it off?
yes, that
Well, I think they had one up around
He's got a mustache just like mine.
Is that right?
Syracuse Junction.
What year
They
did
called
your
Christmas
I'll take these off.
father
I'll get
move
the tape.
from
No.
Syracuse Ward
Syracuse?
Clearfield
Say.
branch or something.
What year did your father move from Syracuse?
To Syracuse.
From Syracuse.
1918 is when he married and moved soon after that. According to this, he married Lily E. Sandberg,
Sandberg.
January 25th, 1918. They were the parents of 4 children. Lily and Walter lived in Salt Lake City and then in southern Utah.
We lived in East Mill Creek. Actually, that part of Salt Lake was East
Yeah,
Mill Creek.
because Hazel,
But I didn't know that they moved to
Father
southern
and Lily.
Utah, did they?
but
They didn't move to southern Utah, did they?
Father and Lily,
Uh-huh.
I think so,
Oh,
down
did
to
they?
Whipso.
Oh, because I remember Grandpa being around our place when we lived up on the avenues. And he was killed in Salt Lake, hit by a car and killed while he was in Salt Lake.
Crossing the street and hit by a car.
Miss Smith, you mentioned you had a brother that died at an early age. What did he die of?
We called it Mandarin's Croup.
And how old was he?
2.5.
2.5 years old. Do you remember that and
Oh, I
and
remember
how they
him.
took care of him or
They
anything?
did him at home. I was telling her that Mother had him laid out on the ironing board, and she said I used to go and stand by the hour and look at him. I remember seeing them taking his little casket and putting it in the back of the white top and going to the cemetery. I remember standing out.
You know where they had the funeral?
They
Was it
didn't
up?
have a funeral.
They were
They were
quarantined.
Quarantined for typhoid
Quarant-
fever.
Quarantine.
My sister Bernice had typhoid, and they said his was Mandarin's Croup that he died of.
Who was the one that went but quarantines around, put them on the house.
Who was the
Was that-
doctor at that time, Mother?
Was that Christensen?
Who was the doctor
He did it one time.
in Syracuse?
Well, they didn't,
Didn't have
ever
a
have a
doctor.
doctor.
Tanner came from Layton. And was there a Kessler?
No, that was Grandma Smith's doctor in Centerville.
Well, we had Tanner, A.Z. Tanner, that used to come to the house. Of course,
We-
that was later.
We had two
Gleason.
people that was midwifery,
That's my mother.
maybe more.
Oh.
You remember Ann Esther Sessions that delivered
Yes.
babies? She probably delivered some of you.
Mother doesn't remember the midwife or never heard the midwife that delivered her, because I've asked her that question.
How about Kate Stoker?
See, I was delivered in Farmington.
I
Yeah.
see. You remember Kate Stoker though?
I remember her, yes, I do.
Yeah, she did a lot of midwifery.
Or did she? You don't need to have
Well, we probably exhausted her.
those. I said, I don't know what I could tell them. I've been away from there so
My
long.
daughter-in-law in California, and when she calls, she talks quite a while. So,
Did you know any Bairds?
Yes, Reese and Abner.
Abner Baird has died since a year ago when he was out there.
Well, they had a thing at Syracuse. Where was it?
Yeah,
And he stood up, and that, I didn't get to speak to him, but I remember
You
seeing
was
him.
out there?
yeah.
She was there.
All three carried at Margaret.
She's,
No, it wasn't.
she sat right by my sister Portia.
There in front of the church.
Don't you remember when we took her out?
See,
Oh,
Portia and my
yeah,
sister
we
were
went out
we
there
were
by
good
that
friends.
playground.
Yeah.
And
Parked like a fair out on the side of the church.
anyway, Abner's died since, but he was 92. He'd be about 93 now. But his mind, even though he moved away in about 1913, his mind was just as clear. He could tell us who played on a baseball team and
Oh.
all of those types of things.
Well, I think boys get around more than girls, though. You know.
They did
They
at
don't
that
remember-
time.
They don't remember as well.
Oh, they remember this is not just different things.
You gonna close it out? Well, I think we've exhausted.
We appreciate